side, Michael Rapaport. My first guest, Larry Elder, who I am a fan of, and I know people are like, what? You're a fan of Larry Elder? I am a fan of Larry Elder. I respect you. I have followed you on the radio. I have watched your film. I didn't watch part 2 of Uncle Tom. I watched part 1 of Uncle Tom. I DM'd you. Me and you speak in the DMs.
That's right.
In a respectful, nice way. You have your next book coming out, As Goes California, November 7th. And you're prolific. You have a star on the Walk of Fame for being on the radio. One of the few.
Corner of Hollywood and Vine, bro.
You like Hollywood and Vine?
Corner of Hollywood and Vine.
What do you think of Hollywood and Vine?
No, it's just that it's.
You feel safe going to see your or you feel,
it's just that it's probably one of the most famous corners in the world.
Yes.
And for me to have a star there is just mind-boggling. I was never really interested in movies when I was a kid. My older brother Kirk loved movies. He dragged my little brother and me down to Hollywood. He knew all the stars down there, and never in a million years would I ever think that I'd be down there.
I'm
so
sure.
It just blows me away.
Especially for radio.
It's where you can stand and hear people in 25 different languages say, "Who the bleep is Larry Elder?" So it's great.
Right, it makes you feel good about everything you've accomplished. And you're a presidential candidate
Right.
at 71 years old. Although you look good.
Thank you. Black don't crack.
Black don't crack.
Black don't crack.
The
elder the berry, the sweeter the juice.
The elder the berry, the sweeter the juice.
Yeah. And given how old people are nowadays running for office, I'm like a zygote. How old is Mitch McConnell? How old is Dianne Feinstein? Was Dianne Feinstein, the late Dianne Feinstein? Trump is 77, and Biden, 80, 81, something like that?
So why are you at 71? I mean, you Social Security, you got Social Security?
I have inexperience. No, I'm running.
Why are you running for president, Larry?
I never in a million years thought I'd run for anything. I ran for third grade class president, and before you asked, yes, I won that way, so I'm batting 500. And then I ran, as you know, in the recall election. And I was approached by people I respect. My pastor, whose name is Jack Hibbs, Dennis Prager, without whom I wouldn't have a radio career, approached me. A couple of other people, a guy named Lionel Chetwin's a longtime filmmaker, and they all said, "Why don't you do this?" And I thought they were insane. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought people were sufficiently angry at Gavin Newsom for shutting down the state in a way more severely than anybody else. Sitting up there at the French Laundry restaurant, you might remember that.
Yep.
Drinking, I think, $12,000 worth of wine. I have no idea what he was drinking. I don't know that much about wine, but I don't think it was Mad Dog 2020. And he's with the very same people that were drafting the mandates for wearing masks and for engaging in social distancing. He was doing neither. And so people were livid. And I thought maybe, just maybe, people had begun to wake up about the crime and the homelessness and how bad the schools are and how terrible our finances are. The average price of a home in California, Michael, is 175% above the national average. I thought maybe people had enough. They didn't, but I thought. And after running the race, I got in with just 8 weeks left. There were 45 other replacement candidates.
Talking about now for president.
For the recall election.
Okay.
There were 45 other replacement candidates. I finished number 1 out of all the other ones. I got 3.5 million votes, more than almost all of them combined. I got in with just 8 weeks left. I kept waiting to find out if I really wanted to do it. And in 8 weeks, I raised $27 million, more than all the others combined. California has 58 counties. On the replacement side, I carry 57 to 58. The only one I lost was San Francisco, and lost that by, wait for it, 149 votes. So it was a spectacular race by any measure. I got outspent almost 10 to 1. In came Joe Biden and said, "Larry Elder is the closest thing to a Donald Trump clone as I've ever seen." Obama cut a commercial for him. Elizabeth Warren did. Kamala Harris did. Bernie Sanders did. And all said the same thing. Nobody said, Gavin Newsom is doing a great job for the people of California on crime, on homelessness, on the way he shut down the state with COVID, on the way he denied kids a whole 2 years of in-person education, which is going to translate into earnings loss over their life. No one said that. They just said, stop the Republican takeover. I have one picture I've taken with Donald Trump in my life. Both of us have our thumbs up. I could count the ridges on my thumbs now, having seen that commercial so many times. All they said over and over again was stop the Republican takeover. And it worked in California because Republicans are outnumbered 3 to 1. In California. So I finished the race. I go to Key West with my girlfriend to chill out. One of the reasons I gained 10 pounds that you were not polite enough not to mention is that so many people, when I walk into a restaurant, say, "You're the guy that ran for governor. I gave you money. Drinks are on me. Meals are on me." Free is one of my favorite words. And so many people said, "Why don't you run for president?" And I thought they were crazy. But the more I thought about it, given how A Republican has not won statewide in California in 20 years. Moses, John the Baptist, Mother Teresa could run. As Republicans, they would not win. And I thought, frankly, I had a better shot of running for president and winning than running for office statewide in California and winning.
But you know, you're not gonna be the president of the United States.
Such negativity, Michael.
So what is
goodness.
what is your
You're depressing me over here.
No, I mean, listen, I would love to have seen you at the debates, but you're not even in the debates. So
There's a story behind that.
Dude,
There's a story behind that.
I want to hear it.
There's a
but I
story
wanna hear
behind
it.
that. I should have been.
I want to hear
got
it.
shafted by the
Okay,
RNC.
go ahead. Why aren't you at the debates? You're running for president.
I should play the race card.
Of course, you should have played the race card. But you got Ramaswamy up there. He's stealing your whole.
Also, Tim Scott's up there too. He's black, so I couldn't play the race card.
Too slow.
Here's what happened. I had to get.
Sleepy Tim. Sleepy Tim. No, I like Tim, but he's too slow.
He's a little laid back.
Yeah, lay back. You got to have that Ramaswamy charm. You got to have that Max Headroom sized head and that Ramaswamy charm.
That forehead that you could sell ad space
Yes.
on. I'm just joking.
I don't think you were joking.
Joking, Vivek, about the ad space. I was just
Go
joking
ahead.
about that.
Why aren't you in the debates?
I had to get 40,000 individual donors. Check. I had to get 3 polls where I was at least 1% or better. Check, check, check. Last minute, after the deadline, Ronna McDaniel, the chairwoman of the GOP, calls me. She said, Larry, you're not qualified because one of the polls you used, you can't use because it is, quote, affiliated with Trump, close quote. Which poll? She said, Rasmussen. I said, assuming that's true, why is it my problem? And she said, in the rules it says any poll that's affiliated with any candidate cannot be used by any other candidate. Rasmussen put out a statement and said, we're not affiliated with Trump. So had I called Rasmussen before I submitted the poll and said, by the way, I want to make sure you guys are not affiliated with Trump, are you? They would have said no, and she still would have disqualified me. So I submitted another poll where I was at 1% or better. She said you submitted it after the deadline, which is true because I didn't know I needed to submit another one. Furthermore, they had conducted their polling and finished it before the deadline. So there was enough wiggle room. They could have put me up there had they wanted to. So as far as I'm concerned, I got shafted. And when you're not there for the first debate, how are you going to do your thing? You know, talk about my dad. He doesn't know his biological father. He left home at the age of 13. Cleaned toilets when I was growing up. World War II Marine vet. Ended up running a little restaurant near downtown LA when he retired. He owned the restaurant, property next door, plus a little house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for an 8th grade dropout Republican dad from the Jim Crow, Athens, Georgia, South. That's my dad's story. That's my story. Nobody heard it. And I had some ideas about what we can do to turn around the country that others are not talking about, so nobody could hear that. So I was damaged by not making the first debate. The second debate, I had to have 3% in 3 different polls. Obviously, I didn't get that. I spent a lot of money on ads, but I got up to maybe 1.5 to 2% and didn't make that one. And the likelihood of making the third one is probably not very good either.
Why are they keeping you out?
My theory, Michael, is that I give them heartburn.
Give who?
The RNC.
And who is the RNC?
The leadership. For example, when I ran for...
The Republican?
Yeah, when I ran for governor, Kevin McCarthy, who's the speaker and is a Californian, did not support me, did not publicly support me. He told the dozen or so House Republicans in California to stay out of the race and to support a guy named Kevin Faulconer. He's a 2-term mayor of San Diego. That's the guy that the state party wanted. That's the guy that the national party wanted. I got in, as I said, with 8 weeks left, went to the top right away. And it was obvious the grassroots wanted me. I drew Trump-sized crowds when I spoke. And it was obvious that the grassroots wanted me. And I thought at some point, even Kevin McCarthy would then say, okay, I'll at least give him verbal support, if not financial support. He did neither. I carried San Diego County, by the way, by 30 points. So the party has never been behind me.
Why wouldn't they be behind
I've
you?
always been an outsider. I'm not playing the inside game. I truly am an outsider.
But what does that mean, though? Like, why would the Republican Party not want you? And why would they go out of their way to not want you? Is it racism? Is it corruption?
No.
What is it?
Stupidity.
Why?
They just don't get it. They don't understand the connection that I've made with the grassroots. For example, one of the things
But what would it hurt them to have you in there?
Stupidity doesn't have a logic behind it. It would have been better ratings since Donald Trump isn't there. I would have been more entertaining than the other people up there. It was just dumb, And as I said, I give them heartburn on a bunch of different issues. For example, the #1 domestic issue facing America, by far, is the epidemic of fatherlessness.
Based on what?
70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. 25% of white kids now enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. And the stats are clear. If you're raised without a father, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail.
Why is that a controversial statement? And I know you.
Name somebody who's mentioned it.
Well, your guy Ramaswamy.
Where do you think he got it?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? I've seen him many times in Iowa, many times in New Hampshire. He wasn't saying any of this until I started saying it.
So he stole your style.
Verbatim. He said epidemic of fatherlessness, which is what
Ramaswamy stole your style.
Ramaswamy stole my line.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Are you pissed off about that?
No, I'm happy that we're talking about it. It would be kind of nice if he gave me credit. And I'll tell you what he did.
When it was pretty obvious in some people's minds, Michael, that I wasn't going to make the first debate, we're at one of these rallies in Iowa. He pulled me to the side. He goes, Larry, if you don't make the debate, will you support me? And I said, Vivek, I can't promise that, but I'll tell you what. If I don't make the debate, and I plan to, at the time I thought I was still going to make it, if I don't make the debate, I want you to get up there and say, my friend Larry Elder can't be here. But he's brought to the forefront the issue of fatherlessness, the epidemic of fatherlessness. If you say that, I will consider endorsing you. So he said part of it, but didn't say the other part.
Have you spoken to him or seen him since?
No. Yeah, I did see him. I saw him one time shortly after the debate at another event. He goes, oh, Larry, I didn't think you were going to be here. I said, I didn't think you were going to be here. And we had kind of an awkward conversation, but I didn't light him up.
Do you light people up? You're pretty chill.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just defend myself. I tell the truth and just see where the chips fall where they may.
Okay.
Let me get back to why I think that they don't want to have me up there. I've talked about the epidemic of fatherlessness. And I've not heard any GOP leader say this. I heard Barack Obama once say it. He cited the same stats I gave you. And then Jesse Jackson told him he was talking down to black people, and he stopped saying it.
Why is that considered talk? Because I've heard you talk about it, and I agree with that. And I've heard you on Charlemagne, and I've heard you on the other one, Van Latham, and the girl. And it seems like when you bring this up to some people, and I don't like to generalize, when you bring this up to some people, when you bring this up to some black people, it's like you're smacking them in the face.
Right.
It's so offensive
to them,
as opposed to being something that like collectively should be looked at and be solved. And I don't understand that. I do.
I don't either. I think it's a number of things. I think it is perceived as somehow dissing the black females who are courageously raising these men and boys by themselves. I think that they don't want to acknowledge it because they would rather focus on what they consider to be systemic racism, and they feel this is sort of blaming the victim, and it's not. As you point out,
you saw my first documentary. I mentioned in 1940, 87% of blacks lived under poverty. 1960, 20 years later, that number had fallen to 47%. 40-point drop in 20 years, the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion in history for black America. Even though 1940 still had the KKK, you still had Jim Crow, you didn't have Brown versus Board of Education yet, none of that stuff happened because it was rare for a black kid to be raised without a father in the home. Also an embracement of Judeo-Christian values, a belief in entrepreneurship. Fast forward, Uncle Tom too talks about what happened to the civil rights movement after it had gone from demanding equal rights to demanding equal results, and people like Black Lives Matter began to lead the charge. On their website, they attack the nuclear family. The co-founders are trained Marxists. Marx was an atheist who didn't believe in God and didn't believe in entrepreneurship. So everything that made black people survive and thrive and grow after slavery is now under attack by the left.
So if by some miracle you became president, or let's say your guy Trump, and we're going to get to your guy Trump, and how apropos is it that you're in New York and that the former president is in court in the beautiful city of New York while I'm here talking.
He and I timed it this way.
How apropos. If by some chance you were president, which would be insane, that would be like the Hail Mary of all Hail Marys, or you had a spot working with Trump, how would you go to work to try to fix the epidemic of fatherlessness in this country for both white people and black people?
Can I say one more thing too? Because you mentioned this on you'd seen the Charlemagne and the God. I just want people to understand how acute this thing is. This is according to the Centers for Disease Control. A young black man aged 10 to 43 is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a white man, same demo. The number one cause of preventable death for a white male 19 years and younger is accidents, like car accidents or drownings or drug overdoses. Number one cause of preventable death for a 19-year-old male and under is homicide, almost always at the hands of another 19-year-old black male and under. Blacks account for 60% of the homicides, the robberies, and the shootings in America. Now, unless you're prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime, I don't think anybody's prepared to say that. If it isn't fatherlessness, please tell me what it is. And whenever I ask people that, they have nothing. I asked that to Charlemagne, he had nothing. Those two people, young people I mentioned at the other podcast I did, they had nothing.
Why? I don't understand that.
It's
specifically that.
Because it's hard for them to look in the mirror and say, maybe, just maybe, we're not doing some things we ought to be doing. Maybe, just maybe, it's us.
Everybody's got to take responsibility for everything.
I have a friend who lives in Midtown, LA, and it's an area in Midtown, LA called Koreatown. There's a library on the corner of a street called Olympic and Vermont. And my friend said, come on, I'll show you something. And there's a library on like a little hill, and there are these Hispanic kids doing skateboard tricks and flipping and stuff like that. I used to do skateboarding when I was a kid. I couldn't imagine doing the trips these guys were doing. He said, let's go inside the library. Inside the library, Michael, wall-to-wall Korean kids and their parents standing because there weren't enough chairs. Not a single Hispanic in the building. Now fast forward, who's working the deep fry at McDonald's? Who's head of marketing and sales at Merck? This is what's going on. And these are things that we can do. Every group has a grievance. Japanese were put in relocation camps in World War II. In California, it was illegal for Japanese people to own farmland. Japanese have higher household income and net worth than the average white American. China. Chinese people were the first ones to have an act called the Chinese Immigration Act to exclude them from being immigrated to America. There were riots in places like LA and San Francisco and Spokane, anti-Asian, anti-Chinese riots. They now have a higher household income and net worth than the average white American. Jews were treated badly. One of the reasons schools like Brandeis were founded is because you couldn't get a job as a professor, you couldn't get tenure. Law firms, same thing, accounting firms. Every group has a grievance. You have to do the best you can, take advantage of available opportunities in America, and a lot of black people are just not doing that. They don't want to hear it.
So
one more quick thing.
Go ahead.
1997, Time Magazine, CNN did this massive survey of black teenagers and white teenagers. This we're talking about over 25 years ago. Is racism a major problem in America? And both black teenagers and white teenagers said yes. But then black teens were asked, is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? 89% of black teens said it's a small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, by a 2-to-1 margin, more black teens and white teens said, quote, failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism, end of quote. That was 25 years ago. That was before Barack Obama. I mean, so this is what's going on. And when I talk about this, a lot of people on the left don't want to hear it because they think I'm letting white people off the hook. I'm doing no such thing. What I'm saying is America has changed. It's changed mightily. When 1966, 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of '64, Martin Luther King goes on British television. And he says, I am shocked by the progress I'm seeing in the last 2 years. Why, if America changes this rapidly, in about 40 years' time, we could have a black president. Do the math, 2008, almost right on cue. He didn't say in 40 years' time we'll have a black president of Harvard University, female, and we do. He didn't say in 40 years' time the mayors of LA, New York, Chicago will all be black, and they are. He didn't say in 40 years' time there'll be a black governor of one of the states of the Confederacy, Virginia, and there was. He didn't say in 40 years' time that the heads of the two most prestigious organizations, the American Bar Association, American Medical Association, will be black. We've had two. He said president, meaning once it happens, I can now say to the fullest extent that's practical, America is now evaluating people based on content of character, not color of skin. Now it's as if it never even happened. We don't talk about it anymore.
What's never happened?
Like Obama never got elected.
Oh, right.
It doesn't even mean anything anymore.
Right.
I mean, on the day he got elected, I'm old school.
But don't you think it was like a figure thing, a figurehead, almost like how you're saying in Harvard? I mean, it's the president, so it's bigger, but like Harvard this, the bar this. To me, when we look back on it, it's like, oh yeah, a black man was president. That's it.
Michael?
That to me, that's what it was there. Because, really, we could say what we want to say, and that's a huge thing. It was a black man as president, his wife, obviously first lady. But, did the world change? Did things change? In my opinion, they didn't.
I can address it, but first let's go back to that moment. The next day, I'm old school. I get the LA Times and New York Times thrown to my house. I bend over, I pick it up. On the front pages of both of them are color pictures of black parents crying, holding their kids. And they're all saying the same thing. I can now tell my kid, you can grow up and be anything you want and not have to have my fingers crossed behind my back. I can now say that. That's what people thought.
Right.
And now, as I said, it's like it never happened. And you're right, nothing really changed because the election of a president, as Barbara Bush once put it this way, what happens in your house is far more important than what happens in the White House. Did it change people's behavior about going to school? Did it change people's behavior about not having kids outside of wedlock? No, it didn't. I have a friend who I thought was a conservative, and he supported Barack Obama. It shocked me. And I said, why? He said, he'll encourage black kids to go to school, to not drop out. I said, what's your evidence that that's going to happen? He said, I just have a feeling it's going to happen. It didn't. I checked the amount of homework that black kids do versus white kids versus Asian American kids like this.
And you attribute this to fatherlessness.
Absolutely.
So going back to my question that I asked, if you were part of the next president, albeit Trump, or you became president, lightning strikes, Hail Mary, Roger Staubach down the field, what would you do specifically to try to improve that?
The first thing you do is acknowledge the problem.
Right.
That's why I supported the Million Man March in the mid-'90s. I didn't support the messenger, but I supported the message. And what he said, Farrakhan, he said, man up. When you bring children into the world, you have a moral obligation to feed them, to clothe them, to house them, to educate them. And failing to do that means you're not really a man. Mm-hmm. I supported all of that. Second thing, these kids need mentors. I liken it, Michael, to AA, where you're an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, you have a sponsor. You have somebody you pick up the phone, call, guy comes to you, talks to you, mentors you. There are a whole bunch of baby boomers my age who are retired, about ready to retire. They're physically fit. They've raised their children. They've nurtured their grandchildren. They have life experience. They have wisdom. I'm urging them all to get involved and to step up and be mentors. Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, at least give resources to your local churches and other organizations in your own community doing this work. And there are people doing this stuff all over the place. Mm-hmm. My church is the Calvary Chapel Church of Chino Hills. We have a program where men go door to door here in Harlem, offering mentorships. Get involved. Step up. Secondly, we spend a lot of money, waste a lot of money at the federal level and at the state level in various capitals on programs designed to fight poverty that just don't work. Instead of my tax dollars going to New York, going to DC, can I just, on my form, check out where I want my tax dollars to go, write down the organizations they should go to? There's an organization in LA called Bond, Brotherhood of a New Destiny, led by a guy named Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. What he does is mentor people who grew up without fathers. To calm them down, tell them they shouldn't be so angry, have them forgive their fathers. That's what he does. And there are organizations like that all over the country. They need hands, they need money.
All right. As far as the media, does it, like this whole idea, listen, I'm a white dude.
My condolences.
You know.
It's not a good time to be a white dude.
Is it not?
It's not.
I think we're getting it back though. I feel like 2024 is going to be the white dudes are going to come up again.
When Biden was endorsed by James Clyburn, 2020. This is after Bernie Sanders won the Nevada caucuses. For a while, this guy, a self-described Democrat socialist, was their front runner. They were scared bleepless. James Clyburn endorses...
Say shitless. Say it. Say it. Come on, Larry. Come on, say shitless. Go ahead.
My father does not like me to curse.
I know.
He never did, and I cursed.
I get it. I respect you.
I cursed a lot, and my father would cringe every time I did it, and he said, "I just don't like you to do that," and so I try not to.
Just say
out
shitless.
of honor to my dad.
Just say it one time. Just say shitless on camera.
Bleepless. And he extracted a promise from Joe Biden that if you're elected president, I want your first Supreme Court nominee to be a black female. Biden gets the nomination. He runs with a black female. For a little while, it appeared that Dianne Feinstein might not finish out her term, and this is about 3 years ago, and Gavin Newsom said, if she can't finish out her term, I'm going to nominate a black female. That is why, by the way, they are stuck with Kamala Harris. No matter what happens, if Joe Biden cannot fog up a mirror, it will be Kamala Harris.
What is your opinion on Kamala?
I think pretty much the same as everybody else.
What is it?
Nobody's there. She was asked to get to the root causes of illegal immigration. The root causes of illegal immigration is Joe Biden! And she can't say that.
Why can't she say that? Because then
she had the most left-wing voting record, even as left-wing as Bernie Sanders when I was up there. What do I think about any of these left-wing people? That's why I wrote the book, As Goes California. Tax, spend, regulate, climate change alarmists, soft on crime, soft on the borders. I feel that way about all of them. Kamala Harris is no different than any of the other ones.
Are there Democratic candidates are there Democrats in recent years that you do like, that you do have things that you agree with, that you do see, things eye to eye with or similar? And because to me, why I named this show Pick a Side, and I know you said you had a show, one of your many radio shows called Pick a Side. For me, the lack of gray area is really the big problem in politics. And I'm no expert of politics, but the fact that it's the LA Dodgers, the New York Yankees. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
I've never seen it this polarized.
Who did it? You know who did it.
I know
who did it, Larry.
I know
Before I say it.
I know what you're going to say.
You
but
say
you're
it.
wrong.
You say who.
But you're wrong.
No. Who made it this polarizing? Say it, Larry, please. Say who made it this polarizing. I'm begging you to say it. I am begging you to say it. I am begging you to say the guy who made it this polarizing.
I think that Donald Trump angered a lot of people, including the media. I'll tell you why.
He made it this polarizing. He took it to like steroid Barry Bonds level.
They should look in the mirror. When Donald Trump first decided to run, he was on CNN, he was on MSNBC, hee-haw, which is what I call it, all the time. Why? They thought of him as a joke, but every time he was there, the numbers went up. So he starts picking off these candidates one after another after another. They realized, holy bleep, I did it again. We created a monster. And so they went after him with a ferocity that I've never seen before because they know they helped to create him. Donald Trump was called a Nazi. There's a guy
I don't like anyone using that term Nazi.
As well you shouldn't. As well, nobody
like
should.
You got to earn that term.
Nobody should. Donald Trump was called a fascist. One of the members of the House, his name is Brooks, said Ronald Reagan got his racist precepts from the pages of Mein Kampf, end of quote.
Right.
When Barry Goldwater was nominated in 1964, the governor of California, Jerry Brown's father, he said, the stench of fascism is in the air, end of quote. The guy, George Soros, likened George W. Bush to Joseph Goebbels, the head of the Nazi
regime.
Misinformation.
Yeah.
Propaganda.
Yeah.
So referring to Republicans as Nazis and fascists has been done for a long time. And as far as I'm concerned, the Democratic Party is a party that's been the more shrill of the two.
In terms of that.
In terms of that, yeah.
As far as making it polarizing and who's made it, taking it to another level, Trump, and you're a chill dude, you're a well-spoken dude. When I think of a conservative person who presents himself like a conservative, you are absolutely somebody I would say, who presents himself that way. Trump got elected iconically at his debates. Why he became the people's champ, lying Ted Cruz, this one's names, that one names. That seems so opposite to the type of behavior that you represent from yourself. Why and how can you support a guy who also, I also heard you say that when it comes to debates, you're not at the debates. You don't like everybody shooting each other down, and then because it's not good for the party, and you don't like that. People like Gavin Newsom. Well, then again, use it against you. But Trump got elected not shooting, fucking publicly lynching, giving nicknames, sexualized hands, all the bullshit that he did. And I know you don't curse. How can you support this guy?
I'm watching the Golf Channel. I'm not a golfer, but
Give it to me straight. Don't give me about the golf. You're
I'm watching the Golf Channel.
Don't Tiger Woods me here like a Jack Nicholson me.
And I love the sport, although I don't play it.
Okay.
And
I'm following you. You're not gonna
stay with me. This is going to make a lot of sense to you. These two professional golfers were being interviewed, and the host said, "What makes a good golfer?" And one of them went through this beautiful, elaborate description of what makes a good golfer, where you put your hands, where your shoulders are, where your legs are, where your eyes are. And the other one went like this. I look to see where the ball lands. Mm-hmm. I like where the ball lands on immigration, on abortion, on judges, on taxes, on losing the regulations, on reversing the war against oil and gas, on standing up to China. That's what I like. The rest of it is white noise, pardon the expression.
But is it white noise, Larry?
To me, it is.
All right, to you it is.
Look at the BS Joe Biden does.
I want to stay. We'll get to Joe. We'll get to smoking Joe Biden. We'll get to cadaver Joe Biden. I'm not one of these people. I vote for Larry. I am not one of these people. And the only time that people pay attention to me with politics is when I go at Trump. I go at all of them. All of them.
Well, we need to do it now.
But let's stay on your guy Trump.
This is about Trump.
Okay.
Obama. I'm in Boston 2000.
This is about Trump, Obama.
I will connect the dots.
Okay, connect them good. The golf was
The
good.
beautiful thing about the podcast is I get time to develop a thought.
100%.
I'm in Boston 2004, and this guy comes up, funny guy, skinny guy with funny little ears named Barack Obama, and he's introducing John Kerry. And he says, there's no blue America. There's no red America. There's just one United States of America. Everybody goes nuts. There's no black America. There's no white America. There's just one America. Everybody goes nuts. I turned to my producer and I said, this guy's not saying anything. It's just fancy, pretty rhetoric. Anybody can give that speech, but he gave it well. He's probably going to run for president someday. Obama announces president, and he's on 60 Minutes with Steve Croft. And Steve Croft says, he wasn't the front runner yet. He's catching up to Hillary. That's why they had him on. And Steve Croft says, Senator, if you don't win, will it be because of racism? I'm at home by myself. I said, let's see how this man answers the question. Is he going to give a victocrat answer? That's a word I coined. I get 10% if you use it, victocrat.
What does it mean?
Somebody that blames everybody else for their problems.
Okay.
Professional victim, victocrat.
Victocrat. I like that word.
Thank you. Booyah. 10%. Write that down. Elder 10%.
That's going to be the name of my next
acknowledge,
book.
Acknowledge it. Like, we got
Victocrat by Michael Rapaport.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is he going to give a victocrat answer the way Sharpton would, who ran for president and then blamed it on racism, and Jesse Jackson ran twice and blamed his loss on racism? Or is he going to tell the truth? And to his credit, he said, no. If I don't win, it will be because I have failed to articulate a vision that the American people can embrace. I went, wow. Senator Obama at a black church is talking about how much racism there is in America. This is when he's running. And he said, the Moses generation, referring to Martin Luther King, has gotten us 90% of the way there. My generation, he said, the Joshua generation, has to get us that additional 10%. Now, there was a Fox News poll, 2002. 8% of Americans believe it is possible that Elvis is still alive. So in that 10%, you got that 8%. So frankly, we're about as good as you can get, just about. And I liked the number.
Some people believe that JFK Jr. is still alive.
And
they're very prominent at your guys' rallies.
And I like the number that he gave. We're 90% of the way there. When he walked into the Oval Office the third week of January 2009, I know this is a long way of answering your question, he was at 70% approval.
Barack.
Yeah.
Yes.
He got elected with 53%. How do you get to 70% when you haven't done anything? The answer is a bunch of people who still don't want their taxes raised, as he promised to do, who don't want Obamacare, as he promised to do, said at the very least, he will bring us together racially. So both blacks and whites thought that race relations would improve. When he left, both blacks and whites thought race relations got worse. Why? 8 years. The Cambridge police acted stupidly. If I had a son, he looked like Trayvon. Racism is in our DNA. He embraced Black Lives Matter, had Al Sharpton in the White House over 70 times. He had an AG, Attorney General Eric Holder, who said voter ID was pernicious racism. He played the race card over and over and over to the point where here in New York, his last term, officers Liu and Ramos were shot sitting in their car by a black guy who was pissed off because of the Black Lives Matter narrative that the police were engaging in systemic racism against black people. The stats, by the way, do not show that whatsoever. Baton Rouge, three officers killed execution style by another black man. He also told on social media, told friends, he did it because of systemic racism by the police. 5 officers killed execution style in Dallas. Another different black guy. 3 different black men.
These are lunatics, though.
All motivated by the same rhetoric.
Right.
That Obama embraced. The Black Lives Matter BS that Obama embraced.
My point is, Obama made things worse racially, not better, worse. He did the opposite of what American people thought he was going to do when they hired him. So while Donald Trump gets a whole lot of grief for stuff he said, Obama gets nothing because he did well-crafted sentences, he went to Harvard, he spoke beautifully, but he had the same incendiary rhetoric that you accused Donald Trump of having, except you didn't think it was going to come from him. Joe Biden goes to Howard University. This is a few weeks ago. Commencement exercise. And he says the number one threat to the homeland is white supremacy.
Right.
Are you smoking something?
Right. I know, it's pathetic.
The
It's pathetic.
Anti-Defamation League keeps track of how many people are killed every year by extremists. Last year there were 25 people out of the over 20,000 people who were killed.
And every one of them is a heartbreaking, devastating thing.
Yeah, but it's 25.
I got it.
And if you want to play that game, Michael, most homicide is same race homicide. Most
Right.
white people who are killed by other white people. Most black people who are killed by other black people. However, every year there are roughly 750, a small percentage of the homicides are interracial black-white. 500 white guys are killed by blacks, even though blacks are 13% of the population. And 250 black guys are killed by whites, even though whites are 60% of the population. Now, if Donald Trump went to a university and said, the number one threat to the homeland is black supremacy, you and I would both denounce him as a race-hustling demagogue, and should.
Do you don't think he's a race hustler?
Biden does it, nobody says a word.
Do you? Listen, I will say to you right now, when you said to Charlemagne, you brought up the fact that Charlemagne, who I like, he said, when Joe Biden said to him, you're not black, and he said it to him. He didn't just say it to him. He said it to the entire world.
Right.
He said to the entire black public.
You ain't black, yeah.
You ain't black.
Yeah.
He ain'ted it.
You
ain't
jargon.
black if you don't vote for Joe. You ain't black if you vote. What did he say? You ain't black for Joe.
If you don't know whether you want to vote for me or vote for Trump, you ain't black.
And Charlemagne said nothing.
Said nothing.
And I know Joe Biden is full of shit. I know Joe Biden is a race hustler. I know Kamala Harris is a race hustler.
Okay.
And I know that Donald Trump is a race hustler.
He's not a race hustler.
How is he not a race? When there's one black dude in the crowd, look at my black supporter. He's so happy. Come on, Larry.
Awkward, clumsy, I wouldn't have said it, but it doesn't make him a hustler.
That's the same shit, though.
Do you know Donald Trump got a smaller percentage of the white vote than Mitt Romney did 4 years earlier?
Donald Trump got a smaller percent of the white vote.
Than Mitt Romney did 4 years earlier.
So what does that mean?
Well, if he's a race hustler, you'd think that he would get a greater percentage of the white vote, since, after all, he's race hustling in order to attract racist white people. He got a smaller percentage of the white vote than Mitt Romney did.
I'm talking about the. Listen, Larry. These are old school. These are old. We know.
Best economy ever for black people. He pardoned Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. Even Barack Obama.
That's nothing.
Even Barack Obama
the
didn't do that.
pardonings of a dead person is. Come on, man.
He commuted the sentence of Alice Johnson.
Yes, because of Kim Kardashian, because he wanted Kim Kardashian to support her.
He did the First Step Act, which allowed some 5,000 men behind bars to have.
I'm talking about the race hustling. They've both done things that we could say. What things have Joe Biden done to help the black community? You know stats up the wazoo. You're pulling out shit from 1962. What things has Joe Biden done to help the black community? Whether it's appeasing race hustling or not. Give me one. Give me one.
That Joe Biden has done?
Smoking Joe Biden.
I would say nothing.
Not a thing.
Raising taxes hurts people at the bottom. Inflation hurts people at the bottom.
You're not going to give me one
gas
thing.
Prices, I can't think of anything. And his rhetoric has been awful. He's lied about his civil rights record. He claims when he was a teenager, he would go to the black church and he would strategize how to desegregate movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware. New York Times did a whole thing on it. He never did it. And his aides were told, New York Times said, to stop saying it. He says it anyway.
But you're saying you
Talk
don't
about
like
him being a race hustler. He said he went to apartheid Africa when Nelson Mandela was behind bars, and he tried to see him and got arrested.
Never happened.
But you don't like the rhetoric from Joe Biden, but you're stating the rhetoric from Joe Biden, but you're like, you care where the ball ends with Trump.
I was with Trump in 2016 at a black church in Cleveland. He talked about the black family and about how important it was. And I loved it. And people responded well to him. Remember he said, what do you have to lose? Your schools are bad.
Right, what do you have to lose?
What's wrong with that? What do you have to lose?
And he got 8% of the black vote in 2016. He got 12% of it in 2020, a 50% increase. And 20% of black men voted for him in 2020. A substantial increase because a lot of black people saw what was going on. The economy was good. He expanded enterprise zones in the inner city. He did something on the border. The people that are most hurt by illegal aliens economically are black people living in the inner city, because if you are a black person living in the inner city with high school or less, you're competing against illegal aliens with very little education. About 1 million more black people would be working if it weren't for illegal alien labor, according to a study done by the Civil Rights Commission. And Donald Trump stopped that. And Joe Biden has opened the floodgates. 8 million people, probably by the time he ends his term, will be here in the country illegally.
Listen, I don't have the answers. Mayor Adams just said it too. He said it.
But he didn't blame Biden. He blamed Trump. How do you blame Trump?
What Adams just said?
Adams blamed Trump for what's happening.
I didn't hear that, but he acknowledged what's going on in New York. And I was
Right.
by the hotel the other day, and it's
And
shameful.
Only because the governors of Texas and Florida started sending these illegal aliens to blue cities, and all of a sudden, CNN and MSNBC began covering it, and all of a sudden, the mayor of New York,
Go ahead.
MSNBC, all of a sudden, the mayor of New York said something, but he still has not called out Biden for opening up the borders. He still blamed Trump.
Why can't a politician, call out?
Tell the truth.
Why can't? Why can't they?
As you pointed
On
out,
both sides.
As you pointed out, people have picked sides. They're in tribes now. I mean,
Because you can't call out. I know you think Trump is. I know you're like you said.
Would I say the things that he says? No. Would that be my style? No.
As a president.
But I'm happy with his policies.
Would you?
I care. I'm not
Voting for a fishing buddy.
See, that's
I'm voting for policies.
Okay.
I'm not voting. People who you want to sit down and have a beer with. I don't drink beer. I care about your policies. I care about taxes,
I knew you were going to say that,
regulations,
and I have no problem with it. That's what everybody says. They excuse that shit, and I personally think on both sides we can do better. We can do. We can. The fact that we have, how old is Joe?
I think he's 80.
And it's not about the age. My father's 90. He's moving around.
I did call out Trump for one thing that I really thought he should apologize for.
January 6th, causing a riot.
Negative.
Both sides. Jews will not. There's good people on both sides.
You don't want to start. He didn't say that.
Wait, he didn't say that.
Oh my God.
The bleach.
Let me get to what I call him out on. Then we got to talk about the both sides thing because that really needs to be clarified.
What about the bleach? The bleaching your skin. It was just joking.
He didn't say that either. He didn't say drink bleach.
No, he didn't say drink bleach.
Look
He
what
said he goes if you get the light.
Look at what he
like
said.
a cleaning product.
Okay, so
I saw what he said.
I'm talking to Trump at the church in Cleveland. We have about a 20-minute one-on-one conversation.
Privately.
And I said, there's one thing you should apologize for. He said, I know what you're going to say. What I said about John McCain. I said, couldn't care less. I said, you said that George W. Bush lied us into the Iraq War. I said, he didn't lie. I've talked to Condoleezza Rice. I talked to Colin Powell. They both said the intel was wrong, but nobody lied. Saddam Hussein was shooting at the planes, British and American planes. He was stealing from the oil for food program. I named all the reasons that we went there. But nobody lied. And he went like this. Well,
I said, what you're doing is demeaning the most important decision the Republican has made in decades. You're parroting the Ted Kennedy lie. Week after week after week, we were told lie after lie after lie.
it is not true. He was wrong, but nobody lied.
And Trump went, well, but he's never said it again.
And I noticed something. Trump doesn't apologize. He doesn't say the same stupid thing twice. So I'm taking credit for that.
Because
Now, on the both sides thing,
wait, hold on. On the John McCain thing, that's what inspired me. Because I couldn't tell you one thing about John McCain, but the fact that this guy had the audacity to say what he said
you
about,
shouldn't have said it.
and he doesn't apologize because if you apologize, you look weak, right? In his eyes.
I think that's how he sees it.
Do you see it that way? I don't think you see it that way.
Depends on what you say.
If I spit on you, I'm talking. I go, oh shit, Larry. I'm going to apologize as a shit talker.
Yeah.
I'm going to apologize.
I would not have said what he said about John McCain.
That he prefers his war heroes not to be captured?
And I think he should apologize.
He should apologize.
The fact that he does not apologize means I'm not going to not vote for him.
I want to talk about the both sides thing.
Yeah. I saw the full quote. But you could say it.
Okay, the full quote.
Go ahead.
He said, and I'm not talking about the white nationalists and the neo-Nazis because they should be condemned totally. Joe Biden goes on CNN and he says, I started not to run, but then I saw Donald Trump. He's out there and their veins, eyes bulging, and they said there were good people and bad people on both sides. And that's when I decided to get into the race. Jake Tapper on CNN, this 2 years after the fact, said, I went back and looked at the tape. Donald Trump was referring to the issue of whether or not there should be a Confederate monument in the public square, that there are good people on both sides of that debate. Jake Tapper said it. Michael Smerconish, who's their weekend host, said it 2 years later. Biden goes on CNN days after Tapper says this and says it again, and nobody said anything. Now, what is that?
I agree with you, and I saw the quote. And when I saw the quote in full, when I saw the full thing, I was like,
that's probably the number one thing that people give you when they say they don't like Donald
100%.
Trump.
100%. I agree with you.
Another one.
In 2016, there was a poll, and likely voters were asked, what is the number one reason you dislike Donald Trump? And the number one reason was that Donald Trump mocked a disabled reporter. I have a very good friend. I was married a long time ago. He was best man at my wedding. I've known him over 40 years. perfect score on his SAT. The man is brilliant. He has a son with special needs. And he's convinced Donald Trump mocked a disabled reporter. The reporter in question is a guy named Serge Kovaleski. He worked for one of the major newspapers, either the Post or New York Times, I forget which one. He has a condition, he has an atrophied arm, it kind of goes like this. But he doesn't go like this. And Donald Trump, you might recall, said on 9/11, there were Muslims that were cheering the fall of the Twin Towers. And because it's Donald Trump, people checked him and couldn't find any corroboration of that. So Donald Trump found an article where this guy said this. They went back to him and they said, did you say this? He goes, well, I wasn't sure there were that many people. I wasn't sure they were cheering. I wasn't sure they were dancing. And so Donald Trump at one of his rallies goes, and the guy goes, I can't remember. And all of a sudden he mocked the disabled reporter. By the way, even the reporters never said he's mocked me. What Donald Trump was mocking is reporter retreating from that story. There's a website called Catholics for Trump where they have a video of Trump going like this to mock himself, to mock an able-bodied general, to mock other people. He's a stand-up comic. He does this. I sent my friend a 3-page letter linking him to the website. It didn't matter. And I discovered something. Once you hate Donald Trump, you have no interest in unhating him.
Right.
And that's where people are.
Once you hate Joe Biden,
I don't hate him. I just think he's a race-hustling, tax-spend, regulate liberal who's opened the borders, who has given us inflation, given us high gas prices, and has done a great deal of damage to the country. And the pullout of Afghanistan alone, my goodness, we wouldn't be talking about Ukraine if he hadn't done that. So I think he's done more damage to a country in as short a period of time as I've ever seen a president do.
I'm pivoting.
But I don't hate him.
Okay. I don't hate Trump either. I hate the representation of that type of person as our president. Just how at the end of the day, I said that Barack Obama and whoever's the president, like it's just their memory. Like what their policies are going to go, they're going to come and go. They're either going to be, overturned or they're going to stick. But at the end of the day, it's a person on a stamp, essentially.
But Michael, I think you do more damage when it comes from people that you respect and you say a bunch of BS. For example, Eric Holder, Harvard educated, articulate, crisp, well-spoken like Obama. He gives a speech. This is really a time that Donald Sterling lost his team, Clippers, because he made the comments he made about Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Around that time, Eric Holder gives a speech. He says, blatant racism, we got that. Donald Sterling, that kind of racism, not a problem. The problem is pernicious racism.
What's the word?
Pernicious.
You didn't make that one up.
Pernicious, it means deep,
Okay,
seedy, rooted,
Got it.
heavy. And he gave 3 examples. Example number 1, black criminals get longer sentences for the same crime committed by a white criminal. And he cited the U.S. Sentencing Report as his source. And it's true. What he didn't say, the average black criminal has more convictions than the average white criminal. And judges take that into consideration when they do their sentencing. And the Sentencing Commission even said that, and said that the reason for the disparate sentences is because of legitimate factors. I think it's a term they use, legitimate factors. Eric Holder didn't say that part. The second thing he gave, black kids get kicked out of school disproportionately compared to white kids in a given student body, high school. And that's also true. And in the 80s, Jesse Jackson sued Decatur, Illinois, all-white school board because they kicked out a bunch of black kids that were fighting after a football game. Jackson comes in and accuses them of racism. They defended themselves by pointing out that irrespective of the race of the school board, race of the teacher, race of the principal, black boys are kicked out disproportionately all over the country. Judge threw out the lawsuit. The third example he gave was voter ID. He said voter ID was pernicious racism. Most blacks support voter ID. And more blacks are voting in Georgia now than ever before, even though Joe Biden said it's worse than Jim Crow, it's Jim Eagle. So these are 3 examples of pernicious racism that Eric Holder gave in a speech, and nobody said anything. I wrote an article about each one of them. I did a video about each one of them. He was wrong, and wrong. Now, you're a white guy, college-educated white guy, and you're watching Eric Holder. Why wouldn't you believe him? He was wrong. And he's pushing a narrative that's dividing the country. And the reason they do that is they want the country's 50-50, but 13% vote almost 100% one way. As long as we can continue to do that, we can win elections. That's why they do it. And to me, that's just disgusting.
I can't argue with you with that. And that brings me into the media. You call CNN, you call, what do you call
MSNBC.
But you haven't.
Although I like hee haw, so maybe I shouldn't do that.
But why does Fox News refer to the media as if they're not the biggest news channel in the world? Fox News. Now I told you this beforehand. I listen to you.
Right.
I listen to your girl Candace, Ben Shapiro. I listen to that fucking nut job sometimes, Alex Jones, totally fucking nuts. I watch your guys on the Five. I watch Jesse.
I don't even listen to Alex Jones.
That's a little too much for me. That's where I draw the line. Although I was on the show a couple of times.
But as far as the media, like, why don't you?
Alex Jones said that
Sandy,
Sandy Hook didn't happen.
Yeah,
that it was made up, or what,
Yeah.
what was that?
Yo, guys.
At some point, check please.
Yeah, I mean, and then a lot of people will have them on their podcast after they said that.
Yeah.
I go, but as far as the media, Fox News is the media, and from somebody who's experienced and who every single day watches both sides very, very carefully, and I probably watch and listen to more right side news, right side podcasts. Why is Fox News try to exclude themselves from being part of the media? Because they do the same bullshit that the other side does. They do the exact same shit you could watch the same. The tone of it is one is it.
In their defense, first of all, I've never worked for Fox.
Okay.
People think I'm a Fox News contributor. I'm not. A contributor by
You're not a plant?
I'm a contributor by definition gets paid. I don't get paid. I've
Okay.
never gotten a dime from Fox News. I'm an independent guy.
Okay.
I don't think they deny the fact that they are conservative, but I think CNN pretends it's fair and balanced. It's objective, and it's not. I used to be on CNN all the time. I used to be on MSNBC all the time. Chris Matthews had his show, had me on all the time. They stopped. I'm available. Call me. I came on your podcast. I know we don't always agree politically. What happened? What happened? They just effing stopped. You tell me what happened.
You mean in terms of like, so
They no longer have me on. I used to be on a regular basis. They stopped.
why doesn't Fox News have on
And I think the
AOC, this one, that one, and the third one? They have whack jobs on there. Some of these people are nut jobs.
I bet you anything that Hannity would be happy to have AOC on. I bet you anything he's extended her an opportunity to come on.
Why don't you think she would go on there? Because it looks bad.
You tell me. Well, Gavin Newsom went on.
Yeah, but he was good on there.
He was very good. He's a very slick guy.
What do you say, slick?
Slick as in
he's smooth.
He's got good hair.
He's a good-looking guy. Yeah.
You got 5 minutes?
And by the way,
Shit.
I'm happy you mentioned him.
We got 5 minutes. Don't go, because I want to ask you a couple of hard. I want to ask you quicks.
I won't go crazy.
Quick.
So I'm watching Hannity, and he's got Gavin Newsom on. And Hannity says, why don't you debate Ron DeSantis?
Right.
Dude, I ran against Gavin Newsom in the recall election. Where were you then? He wouldn't debate me. Every time I had an interview, tell Gavin Newsom I want to debate him. Nobody put any pressure on him. Recall's over. Nothing's at stake now. This is preseason baseball.
Yeah.
And he's having a debate with Gavin Newsom. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, Ron's going down the tube.
It could have meant something during the recall.
Ronnie D is not ready for prime time.
My point is, where were all the people cheering this debate between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis when I was running for the recall election, and nobody put any pressure on Newsom to debate me? Where were they?
I hear you.
Thank you.
As far as what is your stance on abortion? Give me your take on abortion.
Abortion is wrong.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
Come on, Larry.
Wrong.
How could you say that fatherlessness is such an issue, but abortion is wrong? If a teenager gets somebody pregnant, I want to hear you. Teenager gets somebody pregnant, they don't want to have a baby.
Adoption.
Come on, man.
Adoption.
Or God forbid somebody is raped.
There are 35 couples for every one kid available to be adopted.
God forbid somebody is raped and impregnated.
Can't get pregnant.
And God forbid somebody's raped or impregnated. Someone in your world, someone in a friend's world, a family member. They should have that baby. That's fucking disgusting, man.
The baby should be killed. That's disgusting.
This is not a baby. 2 months, 3 months.
It's still an innocent life. And there are, it'd be one thing if the pro-life side was not talking the talk and walking the walk. But there are thousands of pregnancy centers, sometimes called crisis centers. There are resources, adoption resources, money for housing.
How could you give birth to a baby that if you're raped? That you should not have to give birth to a baby if you're raped. Come on, man. How could you give birth if you're raped and then you have to give birth to it and put it up for adoption?
It's horrible. It's an awful thing, but I still believe that it's an innocent life.
Can I ask you a personal question? Have you ever participated in adoption? I mean, have you ever participated in abortion?
No.
I just think that we as men and in general, women should have the right, especially, I think there should be limitations and rules and regulations.
I don't believe that there should be a federal law, one way or the other. I'm not in favor of what Lindsey Graham wanted to do. Lindsey Graham wanted to do. I've always argued that Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. It should be a matter state by state. I'm in California. California is a deep blue state. When I ran for governor, the so-called Texas fetal heartbeat bill came up, and I was asked about that. And I said, I'm in California. What's going to happen with abortion in California? We have supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and in the Assembly, as I point out in my book. This is a pro-abortion state. There'll be no bill on my desk, put on my desk for me to sign. There were a couple of measures in the last few years in California for parental notifications and for waiting limits, and I voted for them, and they were overwhelmingly defeated. So I live in a blue state.
Okay.
And we live in a federalist society, and issues like abortion, doctor-assisted suicide, drugs, legalization, all these should be state-by-state issues. And abortion should be one as well.
My final question, I could continue talking to me, but you got to go. Based on everything you know, all your experience, all your thoughts, all your data, all your references, who do you predict will be the president in 2024?
Donald Trump. Wow. Donald Trump's going to get the nomination, very likely. And it isn't because Donald Trump is so popular, it's because Joe Biden is so unpopular. 2/3 of people believe that our economy is going in the wrong direction. Only now are people really realizing how bad the borders are. People paying 40% more for gasoline. They care about the economy. And it's going to come down to the economy. And if RFK Jr. gets in, he's going to siphon even more votes away from the
He ain't
Democratic
getting
Party.
in, man. RFK Jr. ain't getting anywhere, man. No disrespect, and I know he's got some kind of health issue, but you can't be president if you can't talk. He drones on. He's like
Reportedly, he may run as an independent.
he ain't getting in.
And if
you
he-
have a better chance of
And
RFK.
if he does, he'll suck enough votes away from Joe Biden to make it even easier for Donald Trump to win.
Right. Do you think he's a plan?
And
I thought you were going to ask me who's going to be on the other side. This, to me, is an even more interesting question.
What do you mean?
Is Biden going to be the nominee? If Biden cannot fog up a mirror, I believe it's going to be Kamala Harris for all the reasons I mentioned. They painted themselves into a corner now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if he runs against Kamala Harris, she's even less popular than Joe Biden.
How did the sweet Dick Willie Brown thing get swept under the rug with Kamala? I'll end it on that. Larry Elder, I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank you for a smart, conversation. As Goes California, November 9th? 7th. November 7th. As Goes California.
LarryElder.com. Throw something in the tip jar because I incurred unexpected legal expenses. I'm going after the RNC. I filed a complaint because they kept me off the debate stage.
The corrupt RNC.
Corrupt RNC, yes.
The corrupt Republican National.
The corrupt
Republican National Committee.
Larry said it. I won't say the S word, but I'll say that.
All right. Larry, I appreciate the
Love you,
time
Paul.
and the insight.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
Thank you.